things first, obviously, since we have culminated uh, Black History Month, I wanted to know from your perspective, Mo, and obviously I'll give my take as well. Obviously, wrestlers of color, in particular, Black wrestlers, have come a long way. As it pertains to the representation and the diversity that we see on screen. And I wanted to know, what is the state of Black wrestlers, uh, you know, what is the state of Black wrestling? What is the state of Black wrestlers? Like, do we have a long way to go? Are you very, very satisfied of what you've seen? Give it all to me. What's your take?
I'll be honest, it'd be wrong for me to say that there is no progression
Mm,
in the state of like black wrestlers in wrestling because I mean, growing up, who did I have? I think that I slightly might have just missed the jazz era and I had to
mm,
rewind back to go see that and see a little bit of Jackie. But I saw like Cristal for an example. Who else did I see from the women like Karma? We had Alicia Fox, but they were people that were never put in like a main title picture. And of course, for like the men, like I was a big fan of people like Shelter Benjamin, but I did kind of also like the stereotypes like Crime Time and stuff like that. Um, and I felt like back then they were either meant to just be mid cards or sideshow acts or just be stereotypical in order to
mm,
be like you know TV time worthy. Whereas with now, I like the fact that black wrestlers could just be like regular people that they don't have to fall into the stereotypes to be important and like the fans like them. Like I know this particular wrestler is a little wishy washy for some people, but I actually really love Apollo Crews and
mm,
people shit on him for being boring or whatnot and not really have much of a personality. But I like what they were doing with him in NXT over there. That they put him in a lot of title opportunity pictures, which is lovely. When it comes to people like Sasha, Naomi, and Bianca, I like the fact that they don't remind me of caricatures of black women, but they are just more or less bringing like their personality or whatever was a big piece of them growing up to the forefront of the screen, and that's what's representing them because that's something where I
mm,
feel as though if I'm a little girl watching back at home, that's going to resonate with me. That's going to make me feel some type of way that's going to make me feel empowered. So I love the representation. I like the fact that when it comes to black female wrestlers, they're not only pushed in TV and being important. I mean, we have Jade Cargill and fucking Bianca Belair currently as champions, taking over the game, and Mercedes right now in New Japan. Like, I would never have thought we would seen like a world before where in all three major promotions of wrestling, black female wrestlers are taking over the game. Like,
mm-hmm,
no one's clearing them. Absolutely nobody's clearing them, and they're their own individuals. They didn't again have to be caricatures. So I love that for them. As far as the men go, I feel like there's been an improvement. Do I think there could be more black male wrestlers? Yeah, they have done some improvement with people like Bobby Lashley. Even though he's a bit of a borderline coon to me, if you will. But we're not gonna talk about that. We're not gonna talk about that. Um, I feel like people like Hobbs over in AEW gets taken pretty seriously over there. People take him
mm-hmm,
to be like real. We had that whole run with motherfucking Swerve and Keith Lee. We had the
mm-hmm.
Acclaim going on. So there's a lot of black representation, but I still do think we could do just a little better sometimes, just because um, I feel like they book us sometimes just to shut us up when they could be giving them better storylines to work with. That has to be my
Mm-hmm.
biggest ick as far as what they do with black wrestlers. It just kind of comes off like they have an agenda sometimes, so let's just put this person in the forefront to shut the crowd up, which it works sometimes. Just again, sometimes I wish they had better, they build up the division better so that my black champ is gonna have better title runs, and we're not just happy that they gave a title to a black person and stuck it on them. We could just say, "Yay!" Like, no, like I want like a title ring that I could look back on and be like, "Yo, do you remember that time when I don't know, when Bianca did this, that, and the fourth?" That's my biggest frustration. But
Mm,
overall, the representation as well. I like the fact that they get sponsorships, that they're getting business deals. That has to be a huge plus. That has to be credited, but it's in progress is what I guess
mm.
I could best say. What do you think?
I think that Black wrestlers have come a long way from women and men. And I think before I get into my little spiel about that, I do want to put a little focal point on race and why race and diversity and equity and inclusion matters. Because I know that, the wrestling fan base is a majority white fan base, and so a lot of people aren't going to understand why race is important, right? And the reason why race is important is because when we look at race, race has been responsible, or the social construct of race has been responsible for the creation and reinforcement of narratives that have oppressed minorities, have oppressed people of color. And so, because of that reality, there has been a conditioning that has happened over the course of hundreds of years where we have uplifted one group of people and we have suppressed other groups of people in more ways than one. Whether we talk about individual cultures and hairstyles and forms of music and all these other things, race has been the driving force behind the creation and the reinforcement of narratives that have oppressed and suppressed people and thus have kept people out of the conversation that should be in the conversation, that have um, deem things ugly that are beautiful. You know what I mean? And because of that, it has, kind of left a very, very narrow field. And now that we're in this era where it's cool to be social, social justice minded and diversity minded and inclusion minded, it seems as if people want to like, no, but race doesn't matter. Well, it does, right? It does matter. It's mattered in so many systems, and it matters in so many systems and styles in the world, right? And just because now it seems like the tables are starting to turn doesn't mean that we should uh decenter this race conversation, because with the race conversation we have conditioned people to believe that whiteness is superior, that whiteness is standard, that whiteness is supreme. And because of that, you have deemed other things to be ugly, as stated earlier. So now we need to begin to condition the public that brown is beautiful, that black is beautiful. And it needs to be reinforced for the same amount of time that we have implied that blackness is ugly. So I do want to get that out the way first. And that's the reason why I believe that race is important. Um, as it pertains to the representation of black wrestlers on screen, I think that that is something that has seen drastic improvement, because when I talk about diversity and inclusion and equity, I'm talking about people feeling seen and people being seen. And over the past 10 to 15 years, we've seen major progression because we've seen every type, or almost every type, of person of color on screen, whether they be plus size, whether they be, things that are a little bit more conservative in their presentation. As it pertains to like for example, the hurt business, or things that are a little bit more playful in presentation, like the New Day, right? And then you have Street Profits, you have Hit Row, you have all these different versions and variations of how blackness can be presented on screen. And just the fact that essentially the women's John Cena is Bianca Belair at this point, I think tells you a lot about how WWE has progressed and the world of wrestling has progressed, so that we see a lot of people that look and sound like us on screen. Now, I do believe that there are ways to go, because I do believe that even though we've made all this progress, and like you said, you had Jade Cargill, you have Mercedes Monet, and if you think about it, you have a black woman as a champion, and in every company, which I don't think that we've ever seen before. And I think that that shows an amazing amount of progress. I think that one of the reasons is because we, as people of color, are making our voices heard as fans, but also because there are wrestlers who are taking control of controlling their narrative, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're they're controlling their narrative, all right. And and they are making their voices heard, and they are saying, this is how I want to be represented, this is true to me. And I think that the wrestlers deserve credit, I think that the fans deserve credit. I think from a business aspect, I don't think that it's a secret now that the black dollar is one of the most powerful things in the world. And any company who is a for-profit company is going to want to tap into an audience that's going to make them more money. So I think that that's one of the reasons why wrestling companies are a little bit more inclined to put black wrestlers on screen, because they understand that there are some heavy financial dividends that can come as a result of that. However,
Mhm.
I think that while there's been a drastic improvement, um, a drastic improvement in the presentation of black pro wrestlers, I don't think that it's the same for behind the scenes. And I don't know why. I don't know of any black wrestling writers. I don't know if there's anybody who is black who is in gorilla position. I don't know anybody who's black who's running camera. And I feel like that needs to change. I feel like representation is a holistic job, and you can't just put people on screen without having people behind the scenes, because now you're putting things on screen and you don't have anyone behind the scenes that can give what's on the screen context. And I believe that black writers, black producers, black directors are just as important as black wrestlers, because they can now create an ecosystem where people like them feel comfortable and people like them feel supported, and they feel as if they can tell their stories the best way they know how to. Because I still feel like we're seeing more stories and we're seeing deeper stories. However, I don't think that we're seeing the stories that can come because of the talent that we have, because there aren't writers who can write stories based on the cultural context behind a lot of these black wrestlers. So I think that we have a ways to go, not necessarily with the black wrestlers, but we need black producers, black writers, black camera operators, black directors. Diversity is a holistic job. It shouldn't just be performative. And if you don't want to make it performative, you need to stack your talent from what's in front of the camera to what's behind it. And that's just my honest take on it. But we want to know what y'all are feeling about this particular issue, about the state of black wrestlers, of people of color in wrestling. Leave us a comment and let us know how you feel. But we're moving on.